hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain, the only thing that's real.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Here Movie Podcast, your greatest source of superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined as always by Sean Keenan.
Howdy thinks that Hugh Jackman is real attractive.
And Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and we have yet another movie based on a Mark Millar comic that is way better than the comic.
Get out of town. You mean Mark Millar kind of writes some stuff a little bit overwrought, and then when it gets to film, sometimes it's a little bit better than his kind of like, well, I'm going to eat the whole hamburger in one bite?
Yeah.
Go figure. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you've looked at a little thing called the box office, but there was a tiny little movie out this weekend called Logan. It is a swan song of many a type here, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, why didn't I put money on that he was going to make that joke?
What?
Ah!
What? Which one?
Little movie.
Little movie? Yeah, you really... Yeah. The Vegas odds on that one were pretty much 1-1. But we talked about it before we started recording the show. I think the budget on this was actually low, even despite the fact that it's reported at $150 million. Because frankly, I think there's some laundering of money somewhere in 20th Century Fox. I do believe.
Yeah, they're trying to redirect it to the next Fantastic Four movie.
We got to funnel this into the Fantastic Four budget because they won't approve of us of having a bigger budget. They'll get plenty of money of this Wolverine nonsense that's going on, but we need more money in that FF budget.
Do you guys know when they're making that new Fantastic Four movie? Because the last one was so great.
It was the bomb. I love it. But no, they're talking about maybe they talked to. I covered it on Nerd Talk Now, Monday through Friday, iTunes, Stitcher, and all that kind of jazz. But they talked to Simon Kinberg, and he was just like, "Don't rule it out, man." So it's it could happen. Who's to say? But we got more pressing things. We got more important things that did happen, and we're reviewing Logan today, man. So Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart are riding off into that good sunset. And does this movie, is it a good send-off? Does it warrant this? Does it make you shed a little bit of a tear? We're going to find out for you. But, man, we have got a good program ahead of you, but we have to take 2 seconds out of our day because it's been a little while, guys. But somebody decided to step up, Whenever, you need a hero in the distance, if you peer out far enough, you'll see one cresting the horizon, and one has risen today to go down to the iTunes and give us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
And this one comes to us from, now it's spelled out like I'm going to say it, Aaron Carter, not the singer.
I was hoping so much it was Aaron Carter, the singer.
The singer. But Aaron writes as follows. It's entitled, I Love This Podcast. I've been listening to this podcast since the beginning, and I'm finally rating this amazing podcast. I've even renewed my Apple account to do it. You're welcome. Thank you. They are hilarious and have a great knowledge about movies and comic books. Also, they can't forget they have a Stallone connection for each one. These guys are great, and I hope I'm the 90th one to review this, because that would be cool. Aaron Carter, not the singer. You indeed are the 90th review on iTunes for HMP. So, round of applause to you, my good friend.
And let me say this to you, Aaron. I already think that you're more talented than Aaron Carter, the singer, because your review was so well written.
And he's probably more handsome, let's be honest. More than likely, I would say. But here's the thing, man. Aaron Carter, not the singer, fantastic. He is indeed, and he will always hold the crown of the 90th review. However, there's a little guy out there named Dr. Dan Dew that really screwed us out of having 95-star reviews. So if you'd like to be the 90th 5-star review, how about you head on down to the iTunes there, give us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
We're talking to you. We're talking to you, Nicholas Shea, not the singer.
That's a good one.
Yes, make that happen. So we would very, very much appreciate that, man. So with that, let's get on into it, man, because I think we're going to have quite the discussion on this here movie. Here's the trailer for Logan.
Hello? You know you gotta pay for that, right? Hey, come on.
Not okay.
We got ourselves an X-Men fan. Maybe a quarter of it happened, and not like this. In the real world, people die.
Logan.
I don't want to talk about it.
Logan. Just stop.
Be careful. I need the girl.
What girl?
Go get her.
No. No. No.
And we're down.
She's like you. Very much like you.
I am not whatever it is you think I am.
She needs our help.
Someone will come along.
Someone has come along. This is what life looks like. People who love each other. A home. You should take a moment. Feel it. You still have time.
All right, that was a trailer for Logan, our new release review of this week. Here's the IMDb plot line. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. In the near future, a wary Logan cares for an ailing Professor X in a hideout in the Mexican border, but Logan's attempts to hide from the world and his legacy are upended when a young mutant arrives, being pursued by dark forces. This is directed by Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, Diane Devane, Boyd Holbrook, Stephen Merchant, and more. So my guess is we've covered quite a few X-Men movies on this here podcast. Not all of them, but we're coming pretty close. But I wonder how Bruce is going to send off our boy Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart in this. Bruce, what do you got for us?
Well, I guess as, to borrow a phrase from you, for Hugh Jackman's swan song as Wolverine, I'm going to talk about a character who's not Wolverine, sort of, I guess. But X-23, Laura Kinney, she first appeared in animation, much like Harley Quinn. She was created by Craig Kyle for X-Men Evolution, and her story begins when she's cloned from a damaged copy of Wolverine's genome. Now, that explains the differences between her and Logan, different gender, claws in her feet, that kind of stuff. And she was created to be the perfect killing machine, and she just might be. Now, a top-secret program was tasked with replicating the original Weapon X experiment, and they recruited renowned mutant geneticist Dr. Sarah Kinney to develop a clone of Wolverine. Also on that team was a guy named Dr. Xander Rice, who appears in this movie. And it turns out that this Dr. Rice was raised by an evil geneticist after his father was killed by the original Weapon X. Now, since the only genetic sample from Weapon X is damaged, Kinney's unable to salvage the Y chromosome. Thus, we have a female clone. Now, Kinney proposed the creation of this female genetic twin, and she tried it 22 times before it worked. So after 22 failures, attempt number 23 at reconstituting the DNA using a duplicate X chromosome yielded a viable sample to combine with an embryo. So where are you going to go find like an egg to use for this process? Well, Dr. Kinney decided to kind of use one of her own. And she served as the surrogate mother for this test tube baby and actually physically gave birth to X-23 the old-fashioned way. Now, when X-23 is 7 years old, her claws are coated with adamantium, but not the rest of her skeleton. And this makes her lighter and a bit quicker than Logan, but she's not quite as durable. Now, eventually, Dr. Kenny's niece was kidnapped by a serial killer, so she smuggled the little girl, X-23, out of the facility to rescue her niece. Now, it might not be surprising that Kenny got fired for this, and she was barred from this redux of the Weapon X facility. But before she left, she found out that there was this chamber that contained some incubating pods for subjects X-24 through X-50. So she wrote a letter to X-23, her adopted sort of biological daughter, and gave her a final mission to destroy all those pods and also to kill Rice. So X-23 murdered pretty much everything that she met, then ran off to join her mother, and they prepared to flee. Now, prior to his death, Rice, this Xander Rice, had sort of put like a trigger in Kenny to get her to go into a murderous frenzy, and she killed her own mother. And as her mother was lying there dying, she told X-23 their name is Laura, that she loves her, and she gave her some pictures of her actual biological father, Wolverine, with the address of the Xavier Institute. So that began her search for her father. She managed to become a member of X-Force, and in one misguided storyline, she became a prostitute working for a pimp named Zebra Daddy. And I guess I should point out that she was a little bit older at this point. Now, currently, X-23 has taken up the Wolverine mantle along with his iconic, or at least semi-iconic costume. But I have to say that the character interested me most in her early days, particularly the animated version, where a socially isolated and extremely deadly 12-year-old is lost in the world. Craig Kyle said that X-23 was his attempt to make Wolverine connect more to the younger kids, and he said that he went for the opposite of Wolverine, where instead of a man that was older than we know and had no memory of his past, we have X-23, a young girl who's shackled to the murder she committed, for the kids. Now, the quote that best sums up why I find the character intriguing is a description of the character as being Pinocchio for Marvel Comics. She's a samurai sword trying to become a real little girl. I think this aspect of the character was warmly embraced by the film. Joe Quesada has famously said that the biggest mistake Marvel ever made was letting Peter Parker graduate high school. Well, I think you can add letting X-23 grow up to that list. The adult just feels like a gender-swapped Wolverine clone, but the younger version could have stuck around longer and been the Damian Wayne of Marvel Comics or the hit girl of mainstream comics. Marvel has plenty of child characters at the moment, but none of them seem to have even a fraction of the tragedy, darkness, and redemption that once made X-23 the coolest kid in comics. She was awesome as a child and mediocre at best as an adult, so let's just call her the comic book equivalent of Macaulay Culkin.
Yep. First Macaulay Culkin reference in HMP history. Mark it down, kids. And probably not the last.
Exactly. I was going to go with that.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, this is Hugh Jackman has been Wolverine for over a decade.
17 years, man.
Just nigh on 20 years. And I'm sorry, he'll always be Wolverine to us in some way, shape, or form. But just like, Harrison Ford is always kind of Han Solo. Or Indiana Jones, if you will. But, yeah. Man, oh man. It is. Now, did you guys go back like this week and look at any of like the kind of even picture wise what Hugh Jackman is kind of evolved from, because he's in a very Pokemon-esque way. He has evolved along over the years. He's turned into something like he went from Squirtle to straight up just out and out just ripped beast.
Well, there was that graphic you put up on the Facebook page that I checked out a couple of times. It just showed him through the years.
It is,
I guess, 10 movies, 10 versions of him that popped up through the little thing.
Yeah, it's kind of astounding. And you look at that first X-Men, man, babyface Hugh Jackman, just looking all like, wow, man, he just looks like a little kid right there. And you realize, 17 years has been a heck of a long time. And that was kind of toyed with Wolverine, this kind of being his last thing for at least like 3 different movies. There was always, but I'm
proud to say, after 17 years, I look just as much like him now as I did back then.
You're always keeping that parallel track, and I like that. But just a reminder.
Well, here's one thing I want to say here too about this being his last go around as Wolverine. In theory, I mean, he has said that if Wolverine would be incorporated into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he'd be there quick enough to make your head spin.
Yeah.
But I kind of look at this. I mean, He's kind of like Cal Ripken Jr., for a baseball analogy. I think Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. has been a lot of people's favorite. There have been some folks who've liked various versions of Batman, folks who've liked other characters as their favorite, but Wolverine always showed up as Hugh Jackman always showed up as Wolverine, always did a good job. He's kind of become like the elder statesman, like when David Letterman's last few seasons, he's not the funniest guy on TV, but you respect him because he kept showing up. Mm-hmm. Hugh Jackman is just like that workhorse, one guy, one character, 17 years, 10 movies. It's amazing.
Yeah, you gotta wonder if if he's ever going to go back. Like one of those things. Like not that he's ever going to be in like a main movie as Wolverine again. I mean, where he's one of the main characters, but like like some kind of thing like 20 years from now. Basically, what I'm asking is, you think he's going to be like Stan Lee 20 years from now?
Hey. Oh man, I don't think he'll ever be like Stan Lee per se, but will he be like Adam West and suddenly he misses the character once it's not there?
Well, that's a good question too.
Here's the
and I was trying to remember. Even though that first Wolverine movie is awful, and man, it's bad. He is still good in it.
Isn't it weird?
And you bring up a good point there too. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'll let you finish, and I want to add to that.
And I'm trying to remember. I kept going backwards and backwards after watching this movie, and I was like, I not only can I not remember Hugh Jackman ever being bad as Wolverine, I can't remember Hugh Jackman just being bad in anything I've ever seen him in. Do you guys have anything?
No, I can't. I can't think of anything.
It's pretty darn rare. And here's my problem with Hugh Jackman is he's too good. He's too good. He's too good.
Hugh Jackman was bad in something, Sean. Have you seen Film 43? I think that's the name of it.
I have not.
To be fair, what I understand, no one was good in that film, so I think that's a mulligan.
Well, Hugh Jackman played a character who had this is even a struggle for me, but he had daddy parts dangling from his chin in the movie. So, how good can you be with that going on?
Yeah.
How does he sign up for that?
There was a lot of famous people involved with that movie. It was kind of like a lot of guest directors doing a whole bunch. It was absolute garbage. It was panned as such, and it felt like, from what I understand, it seemed like everybody kind of almost got conned into doing it somehow. That's a mulligan. That doesn't count. I would not count that.
At least I had something. But I want to go back to this idea. You mentioned X-Men Origins Wolverine. If you look at this is the third entry in a trilogy. You can think of this as the final chapter of the Wolverine cycle. And we're always talking about, can you think of a trilogy where the third installment was the best? I want to ask you if you can think of a trilogy where each installment was exponentially better than the one before it. I mean, the growth pattern on this thing, if this went out to like 9 movies, the world would end in gloriousness by the time the 9th one was made.
That's not wrong. No,
I can't think of it. The only thing I can come up with is Air Buddies.
Yeah, and Baby Geniuses got pretty good by the third one.
Mm-hmm.
That is true.
But yeah, I can't think of, this is a question you like to ask sometimes, Sean, and I can't think of any cycle of 3 movies that follows the trajectory that this 3 has followed.
This is it. This is the one. This is the one that this is the bedrock one that we'll always go back to when someone's like, name one where the third one's the best.
That one.
And it's not just the best, it's by far the best. And the second one was by far better than the first one. It's just a crazy trajectory here. And I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I just want to kind of talk about this as a cycle of 3 movies, a trilogy here. But it would have been great. For just a second, I wondered if X-24 was going to be Ryan Reynolds with his mouth sewn shut.
Oh, no, how dare
Just
you.
close the loop. But I mean, they do make references to things that happened in the first movie here just to ensure that everyone understands this is a distinct trilogy.
Yeah, there were references all around where it was just kind of like, here's a little bit, here's a little bit, here's a little bit.
I mean, the sword hanging off the wall, that was a good touch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
I've got another question for you guys before we dive into this too much. But I saw an article on cracked.com about this movie. And it made a point that I can't really speak to. But I want to ask you guys what you think. Because the article claimed this movie to be pretty much the same storyline as Children of Men. And it also made the assertion that Children of Men was better than this movie. I don't think I've seen Children of Men, so I can't really comment on that. Did either of you guys feel like that was going on here?
You want me to go first, Adam?
Please.
Children of Men is a far better movie than this movie. This movie's great. This movie's great. But basically what Cracked is doing is they're trying to wrangle up the nerds with using words like that. This movie is not trying to be Children of Men. Children of Men has an underlying theme throughout the entire movie. The theme of this movie is let's try to make a good Wolverine movie for once. And so it's apples and oranges. I mean, when there's a scene in Children of Men that it literally took me 7 years to figure out how they did it. And Adam, do you know the scene I'm talking about? The one where
the car scene.
Yep.
The car scene.
Yeah, we've talked about that on the show before, though. I remember that discussion, though I haven't seen the movie.
It's it's all out. They're using allegory. There's subtext to Children of Men. There's no subtext to Wolverine. I mean, Wolverine's just a really good movie that doesn't insult your intelligence by saying it. And, sometimes that's a lot to ask for in these movies. The other thing about this movie that, well, you know what? No, Adam, I want to hear your words because
okay.
I'm about to make another point, and
I think that's unfair. I like Children of Men. Don't get me wrong. But you're right. It has become that kind of go-to movie that they go to rile people up, and I think over the years it's become, again, I'm not taking away. I like the movie. I think it's become a little bit more and held on a higher pedestal than it probably needs to be. It's good, but I think somehow that we've an odd section of geekdom has almost deified this movie in an odd way. This is not that movie at all. It's not trying to be. It's like you can come up with like two little things that you can point to it, but you're right. That's just going out to nerds to try to, shake some cages and, hey man, here's something that's inflammatory. This'll get some clicks.
Well, right. I'm gonna tell you the movie that crossed my mind when I was watching it, and I don't mean this in any way negatively, but there were a couple of scenes I'm watching it, and I was thinking to myself, this really feels like Little Miss Sunshine right here. And then later, after I'd seen the movie, I read a few things online where Mangold did say he was going for a Little Miss Sunshine feel in a couple of the scenes. So I felt proud of myself for recognizing that.
Yeah.
The thing that the movie that it reminds me of most is Shane. This movie is a superhero Shane movie.
Well, they reference it in the movie.
Of that.
No, not at all.
They show it in the movie.
I was just like, oh, well, we definitely, if you know Shane, you know what happens at the rest of this movie.
And then sort of the reacquaintance of the estranged father and daughter, that's got a Paper Moon feel. I mean, a lot of good stuff from sort of the golden age of directorial cinema in the 70s, I felt came through here. But a little bit of Peck and Paw at times. I mean, stuff I really like, grittiness that I would compare to just the dirty world that they live in that has a Midnight Cowboy feel. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here that felt like the best part of the 70s that I haven't seen in a while.
But the best part is, man, is that it comes from James Mangold, who's no slouch, dude. Girl Interrupted, he's got Identity, and then, which some people didn't like. I like the movie for what it was. Walk the Line, 3:10 to Yuma. The guys had, and another movie I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. But he's got a good pedigree, man. He did the last Wolverine movie, so we knew that was good. So we knew we were in good hands. And this is a guy who's very, very capable. So not surprised.
And
I actually work with James Mangold. If I can insert myself and my own career into this podcast yet again.
Oh wait, please pick that up. I think you dropped something.
I worked with James Mangold. Like his next thing after he did 3:10 to Yuma was an Interstate Batteries commercial.
I love that.
And here's the reason why, is that he made a lot more money working on that Interstate Batteries commercial than he did working on 3:10 to Yuma.
Mm-hmm.
I like 3:10 to Yuma.
I like that Interstate Batteries commercial.
It really made me want to buy a battery. I didn't even own a car, and I still bought a battery.
I just bought 4 batteries and make a coffee table out of it. It's nice.
Okay, well, here's my last bit of segue, intro, trivia, or whatever before we get into talking a little bit more specifically about the movie. But the next project that James Mangold has out is a Captain Nemo project. And there is a rival Captain Nemo project in production that's being directed by Bryan Singer. So how about that? Our X-Men alum going head-to-head with Captain Nemo's, of all things.
First of all, you need to learn to say it right. It's Captain Nemo! You have to go Albert Brooks style.
My kids think it's another Finding Nemo movie, so I'm going to take them to it and watch their surprise.
This is going to be.
You're going to be very disappointed.
What is this? This is not colorful or fish-like at all. Terrible.
Albert Brooks is also in that also. So.
Oh, wow.
No, that's not true.
It would be fun though, right? Just to hear him say Nemo over and over. I'll take it.
So this movie's set in the near future, guys.
Yeah, 2020 something.
2029. And he drives a 24 Chrysler, which, when the movie first started, I didn't know if he was a chauffeur or if in the future everybody just drove really long cars, but I managed to figure that part out.
We have a lot of baggage in the future. There's a lot of things that just need to be hauled around, and that's why you drive a stretchy car.
Oh, man, we found a whole bunch of new gas, so now we want bigger engines.
I just wish the car was nicer.
This is 5 years after Days of Future Past. You remember Wolverine in Days of Future Past? It was 2024 when he got sent back to the 70s or whatever. So this is 5 years later. This is what's happened to him since he's gone back in time and jimmied with the timeline.
Yeah, okay, so let's unpack that real quick, because now you got me thinking, and I wasn't thinking about this beforehand. So now he did go, so he was in the 2024, monkeyed with the timeline. Do we know, presumably, what time he went back to when he met up with the professor there at the end of that one?
I thought he was going back to the first movie.
That's what I thought. I thought it was like 1999 or whatever the heck the first one
that's
was.
What I thought.
The end of Days of Future Past?
Yeah, they have him go back and see the old, he gets to see the folks who died along the way, and they brought back, what's his name, as Cyclops. And
oh, right.
Yeah, but also, they referenced that about 5 years ago, something triggered this decline in Professor X, and it's that whole Days of Future Past. The fallout of that adventure is what has caused Charles to be in this state.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I need to go back and just kind of think and.
But what I like is you don't need to know any of that to enjoy it. But I just kind of like looking at some of those little connections that they don't beat you over the head with.
True, and they also and that's one thing, because all superhero movies and stuff, my dad, my brother, and I all go see together, and my dad made a point of just it took me a minute to really catch what was going on here and everything, being in the future and all, and figuring out where everybody where all the cards on the table were, if you will, and that was one of the nice things that I like about this, is that we get enough plot, but it's not spoon feeding you. It doesn't treat everyone that's going in like an idiot, but doesn't it doesn't have to spell everything out, but doesn't keep it all completely hidden, if you will.
And I also like that the plot has sort of the necessary explanations, but it still works if you totally ignore them. Like the idea that the reason that Wolverine's healing factor isn't what it once was, the idea that he's now capable of dying, something that once seemed impossible. This guy's been around for close to 300 years at this point, in movie time. I like it that it's the adamantium that's causing that, but they don't try to go too far with explaining how the adamantium causes that. And also, if you just say, everyone has a finite lifespan, this is just the end of his, I'd be happy with that too. I like it that there are all these little events for the folks that demand answers, but you can totally overlook them and it's still a good movie. The adamantium bullet that links back to that beloved first movie shows up here.
I was just like, no, Wolverine, you're only going to lose your memories just like last time. What a crock.
So if I can hijack it for a second, because I want to talk about this. Yeah. I saw this movie with my girlfriend on Friday, and she has a very small knowledge of X-Men movies. Mm-hmm. She didn't know anything about the X-Men. She knew that Hugh Jackman was Wolverine, but she could never remember his name as Wolverine, things like that. But but she really wanted to see this movie because of the Johnny Cash trailer. Because that Johnny Cash trailer is a dark, depressing looking movie. Mm-hmm. And she loves dark, depressing movies. So she was like, "Oh, we have got to see that movie." So I take her to see it. Now, keep in mind, I want to say this before I say anything else. I really, really like Logan. I really like this movie. But this is not the movie that trailer promised us. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That movie, that trailer is a depressing, like panning epic movie with the Johnny Cash song. This movie is not that movie. This is something that clips along very quickly. I think the beats are great in it, but that is not the movie the Johnny Cash trailer promised you. With that being said, she likes the movie. I like the movie, but it seems like a wait. You guys kind of got us tricked here. You know. I guess that's what I'm looking for.
I'm going to say that I think I like this movie better than the movie that trailer insinuated. Of course, the trailer hooked me in, but I was hoping there was more to it. I think that if they had really went all in on the tone in that trailer, they could have easily dipped into just a little too much brooding Warner Brothers type movie territory, and they stayed away from that. They weren't afraid to even have a couple of laughs in this movie.
No, that's true.
Well, the big thing for me was like I avoided the trailers for the most part. I think I finally, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks before, saw the first trailer only. I hadn't seen any of the other ones, and it was the nice. I would have saw it earlier had I known it was just more of a kind of a tone poem, if you will, of what the movie was going to be like, and not necessarily like a real, spot on spoiler trailers, and I've made mention of this in the past. I'm really glad that companies are starting to do that and just go, hey, we'll give you the crazy, learn everything in the movie trailers, but this one's just going to kind of give you a more feel of it. And by the feel and stuff, I mean, I was excited for what they got, and I think we got a bit of that, but it wasn't as dour as Johnny Cash last, it's a cover he's covering the song, but.
One thing I'll say regarding the trailers too, and this wouldn't have applied to me anyway, because as soon as a little girl shows up, I'm going to know it's X-23. But the trailers did show her claws coming out. At least one of the trailers did. And I heard a report from a person who didn't know who X-23 was. I mean, he'd seen all the X-Men movies, didn't really know much outside of the X-Men movies, hadn't seen the trailers. And like the moment that her claws came out in the movie, he was not expecting it. It was like one of the biggest reveals, biggest aha moments of the whole movie for him. And I kind of wish that I could live a life where I could have experienced that, because I think that could have potentially been awesome if you had no clue. Like, you think this little girl's just a mutant, maybe she's the next Phoenix Force or something, and then all of a sudden you unexpectedly see that sweet little girl's claws come out. I think that's going to knock your socks off if you're not expecting it. And I kind of wish the trailer hadn't shown that, so that more people could have had that moment.
Yeah, I was hoping that it would be kind of like just a hint that was like going to be there and not really kind of showing us. But again, it comes down to marketing, and they're like, hey man, we got to sell this thing, and what sells more than, little kids just beating the snot out of other people, especially with claw hands,
Yeah, they could have played it a couple different ways, but you're right. You want to get every possible butt in the seat. You want them to know it's an X-23 movie.
But at the same time, like I say this for the same thing that I say about Star Wars. You want to make the next Star Wars trailer, have it be a field of stars, pop up Star Wars, December. That's all the Star Wars trailer you need. People are going to see it. It's called Star Wars. People are going to go see Logan. It's an X-Men movie. Come on, dude.
Well, not all the X-Men movies have opened strong. I mean, even the Wolverine, I think, was lukewarm at best. The movie that preceded this, directed by the same director, I think it had a fair to middling box office.
Well, I mean, look, after you've been burned as bad as you were with X-Men Origins Wolverine, that's tough to. It's tough to blame an audience to go, fool me once.
That's true.
But
this movie had an $85 million opening in the U.S. and North America. And I don't think it has that $85 million opening without letting people know a little bit about what it is. I think if you just say, hey, it's the last Wolverine movie, it probably opens more like 50 or 60.
Probably 60.
I do have to say, though, Adam, you are right about the Star Wars thing at this point right now in time, because we've learned, okay, we can trust you with this. Just say Star Wars is coming out and when it's coming out, and we're good now.
And I would even go so far with Star Wars. You could have just a little teaser trailer that says we're going to apologize ahead of time. This is the worst Star Wars movie yet. It's still going to open at 100 million.
Yeah. I mean, look, even Adam Driver's come out and said, "Look, I wish we would not show trailers for this. It's like you guys are going to be so surprised, and there's going to be so much stuff that's coming in." He's like, "I wish they wouldn't do trailers." So people want it.
But to get to my point here. X-Men has not earned that right.
True.
The X-Men movies has not earned that right. Of all of the X related movies that we've seen, how many really good X-Men movies have there been? 4.
3 or 4, yeah.
Yeah, 4 might be the upper end, the upper limit.
I mean, you know, I get it that, you know, nobody wants to be spoiled by trailers, but, you know, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, geez, they haven't earned the right to go, you know what? We're making this movie and it's good. And you know who could do that? Marvel. Marvel could literally go, hey, our next movie is coming out here. We're not telling you what it is, but it's coming out here and this is the date. We'll see.
It's called Infinity War, son. Come on down. Yeah. And you're like, okay.
Well, they've already adopted that with some of their trailers. I mean, the little teasers and trailers that they put out for their Netflix shows tell you nothing other than just give you a look at what the character looks like.
Now, I haven't watched
and I like that.
I haven't watched the most recent one, but there's been at least 3 Guardians trailers that tell you nothing. They're all tone. They're all tone. There's the latest one I hear has a lot of stuff in it, so I'm not watching it. But the first 3 trailers were all just like, hey, here's a feel of what this movie's going to be like. And that's it. And it's such a smart thing to do.
I wish I wouldn't have seen it, I'll be honest with you. I'm
glad I didn't. So that's I'm keeping it off the radar.
I don't think I have seen it, or if I have, I'm blissfully suffering from that same neurodegenerative disease that Professor X has and don't remember it. But let's talk about this little girl.
Is that why my house is shaking?
Exactly. Let's talk about Daphne Keene, the young lady who played X-23 in this movie.
Let me ask you this question about her. Is she going to be in every other X-Men movie we'll see from this point forward? Because I think that they need to. I think she needs to be in it.
I think she's awesome. I think that would be cool. I think they're going to have to figure out how to do that, you know, considering she's 11 years old in 2029 and the current X-Men entry is expected to take place in the 90s, I guess. The next one up.
You have one of the time shifters. Just send her back.
Ooh, are we going to finally get?
Or you could just make some more movies set in 2030. You know, I mean, let's see the New Mutants movie. Set it with this group of kids and have her be the central figure.
Well, that's what my brother said. He goes, "Is this going to be? Is she going to get her own film now?" And I go, It's tough to say, but I wouldn't be shocked.
That's a mistake, though, man. You have got to put her into a movie where you have what I believe to be your 3 strongest X-Men now. You got to put her in with Deadpool. You got to put her in with Quicksilver, and there's your movie.
Well,
that would be one heck of a movie.
I was thinking less of an X-Men movie, more of like you said, like a New Mutants or an X-Force or something like that.
So are those kids going to be the New Mutants?
Probably not, because so far the X-Men franchise has thrown away more New Mutant possibilities than ever imaginable. But I think it would be a good thought if anybody wanted to do that. At least keep Richter and the Chubby Kid around, because there was nothing as enjoyable as watching that Chubby Kid book it through the forest. I'll tell you.
He was booking too, man.
I was a Chubby Kid once, and I could never move like that. That guy should be like Quicksilver.
Man, that guy moves like Bam Bam Bigelow.
Yes. And I'll tell you, there's nothing funnier than a Chubby Kid running, man. I loved it.
Chubby Kid falling over.
Yeah.
That kid's going to be a wizard someday, I'm telling you.
But
yeah, that girl, Daphne Keene, both of her parents are like accomplished stage actors in Europe, from what I understand. And she seems to have inherited, if it's the sort of thing that can be inherited, man, I was nothing but impressed with this young woman and how good she did here.
So you can inherit traits that come from your parents. That means that I am a borderline racist.
I don't know how to break it to you about that borderline part there, Sean.
I'd expect that from you, Polak.
Isn't it lovely how we can all just be as racist as we can to Polak's like, nah, it's fine.
What'd you guys think about the Reavers showing up? All I know is I thought one of the Reavers had like tank treads for legs, and I was sad he didn't show up.
This version of the Reavers is the best version we're ever going to get, because the Reavers have always sucked in the comic books. They're the worst characters.
You don't like Tank Leg Guy or whatever you call him with the tank treads?
No, he looks like he looks like one of the bad guys from that old TV show Cops. You know, C.O.P. Like he looks like somebody from there.
He looks to me like Johnny Five and Ali Sheedy finally did the deed and had a baby.
Man, that is such an awful movie. Have you tried watching that movie recently?
It's so good.
This is ridiculous. Why did we think this was great?
It's all about the El DeBarge.
Well, you got that.
You are not wrong there, my friend.
Well, now, you got the Bonnie Tyler song in it too, which also helps. That don't hurt nothing.
What about the whole meta awareness of the comics in the movie and this concept of Eden? And it was almost like it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. I like that, man. Even though he did throw Chris Claremont under the bus a few times by saying that it's all BS, but I really like seeing the comics on there in a way. You know, it works for Captain America. We've seen it there, but we haven't really seen it a whole lot in any other movies, and I like that.
But it's also a nice way to really just go like, you never get in the suit, so shut up.
At least not now. You never know, though. Maybe X-23 will have the tan suit on when we see her next.
Who's to say? But let's talk about this. Let's talk about the R rating in this thing, man.
Because they worked real hard to put in an unnecessary pair of chowder buckets. I mean, that scene could totally not have been there. Doesn't affect the movie at all.
This movie, so Deadpool came out, and first of all, Deadpool came out, made a ton of money, and go, hey, people actually want to see R-rated comic book movies. It's gonna be crazy, And then when Wolverine came out and said, hey, we're gonna be R-rated as well. People don't realize that R rating, actually, they were planning on an R rating far before Deadpool was a gleam in Rob Liefeld's eyes. Maybe not quite that far back, but you get what I'm saying. They were like, nah, man, we ain't going to, they were planning on an R rated for this last one. And like you said, that's how Hugh Jackman kind of took that budget, that little cut there and everything. But they went all out, man. I thought, oh, we'll get a few F-bombs. We'll get obviously some more violence and stuff. But boy, did they ratchet it up further than I ever thought possible.
When the little girl throws the decapitated head across the ground, that's what I like, man.
Yeah, that was we were really leaning into kick-ass territory there for a little bit, which I don't mind. I think that's a smart play.
Hit Girl, particularly as she's played on screen, is one of my all-time favorite characters, man. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what kind of psychopathology I have, but I mean, I love the idea of Damian Wayne, the 9-year-old assassin. I love Hit Girl, the girl whose dad has messed up her brain so much that she's a killer. I love the young version of X-23 who's in that exact same boat. There's something about me that really likes those characters. And then also, I picture them all to grow up and be just like Rorschach, who's my no secret, that's my favorite character of all. And for some reason, I'm drawn to these warped characters like that. Can you guys figure out what it is I like about this deadly innocence idea?
I don't know.
I already got it. I got a theory. What do you got?
I like thinking the idea of like Bruce's family just sitting around the dinner table and like one of his kids catches him just looking at him a little bit too long. Dad, you're not thinking about turning me into like some psychopathic killer again, are you? No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's pretty good. See, my theory is that Bruce has the same thing that everyone around our age has, because Bruce and I are about the same age. I blame all of this on Muppet Babies.
Oh, I love Muppet Babies. That's my...
Okay, I got to hear this.
Muppet Babies made it okay for you to be like, oh, there's little versions of all of your favorite characters, like from when you were a little kid. So you grow up watching Muppet Babies, you're like, oh, well, of course there's a baby Miss Piggy. So then, of course, there's going to be a baby version of Bane. Like it just makes sense. Yeah. So in the last couple of years, what comic book people have figured out is like, we can just sell them all the same crap. Just make them younger and babies, and it's all going to work. So the psychology is, what I really want to see? I really love that assassin lady from Kill Bill. But what I really wish is that she was 11.
Oh man, imagine how much better Power Pack could have been.
Man, a baby version of Power Pack? Come on. It's called Baby Geniuses, and it's pretty great.
Okay.
Hey man,
who
I've
had
already
the over under for
my idea for Baby Thanos with his Infinity Mitten.
That's true. Oh my god, I forgot about the Infinity Mitten. Oh my god, that's digging some H&P well right there, man. That's going back.
That's hardcore.
I'll take it. But yeah, I was surprised at how cool this was, how violent everything was, how they just did not shy away from it, and man, oh man, like it went hardcore and all for the better.
When X-23 tears into X-24 and she's just gouging him like vicious. I mean, it's like some little demon has gotten a hold of him. I can't think of any other way to describe just the way she doesn't relent puncturing him. And of course, it doesn't do much good. But yeah, I love that viciousness there.
She kind of went the Wolverine berserker on him, man, for sure.
And I also kind of like the idea that Old Man Logan and X-24, obviously I don't think there's any CGI tricks there other than, I mean, the obvious that they had to to composite them, but I don't think they de-aged him or anything. I think that was practical, right? Making him look younger and older.
Here's the thing. He looked like the older stuff was mostly just makeup and make him look kind of more grizzled than he actually is, because he's still a very handsome, devilish man. If you look at him in the regular pictures, he's gorgeous looking. But he's
gorgeous.
But they olded him up and stuff, and then they just kind of gave him a buzz cut there and, shaped him up, put better makeup on him, and let him go. Yeah.
And when I found out X-24 was not going to be Ryan Reynolds with his mouth sewed shut, there was part of me that wondered if maybe it would be Liev Schreiber, but that didn't happen either.
No, at some point they were actually thinking about bringing him in there to kind of do some stuff, but they nixed it.
Oh man, I'm so glad he wasn't in it. Lindsay would have lost her damn mind if he showed up in it.
I wish that Tom Hanks would have been there as Mr. Hand or something.
Tom Hanks in any of these movies would be fantastic. So, and again,
what's he waiting on? What is he waiting on? Come on, Tommy.
The perfect role, man. He's waiting for the perfect role to come along. He wants to play Rhino in the next Spider-Man reboot.
That Paul Giamatti didn't do it well enough.
But I also like, though, when Logan got to give himself a dose of that green juice so that we got one last touch of the old school Wolverine before he rode off into the sunset. That felt really good to me.
I'm so tired of people stealing stuff from Turtles 2, The Secret of the Use. I'm so tired of it.
Well, you'll hear a little bit more about that one at the end of the episode. Just spoiler alert. But let's talk Patrick Stewart, man. Patrick Stewart, like all the way back in the day, all the way pre X-Men into the Wizard, magazine casting call sessions. If ever there was a name to be brought up for Professor X, it was always 110% Patrick Stewart. I don't think you could find anyone who would have told you otherwise. And then they made it a reality. And we've gotten 17 years of him as this character in tons of movies. You guys, do you think this was a nice swan song for him?
Yes, and I got to ask you a question, Adam. Do you have any idea what year the movie Excalibur was made? Because that was his first movie, and I watched it yesterday. And I'm thinking like 86 at the very latest. Maybe
81.
81? Okay, so I saw Patrick Stewart yesterday in Excalibur, filmed in 1981, and he looked almost exactly like he did in Logan.
He does not age.
Or he was never young, I think is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, he came out of the womb 45 years old.
Him and Morgan Freeman came out of the same mama.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't look. It's negligible. And again, I think they also olded him up in makeup department as well, because he doesn't look that haggard in real life. I mean, the guy looks like he looks all of 60 years old, man. He's a sprightly young man.
I can just imagine it'd be interesting. It'd be just kind of interesting if Hugh Jackman came into the makeup truck, or where do they put makeup on people? Is it in a truck, in a tent?
It's in a trailer.
Depends.
It's in the makeup trailer.
I'd love it if Hugh Jackman came into the makeup trailer and they're talking to Patrick Stewart and they're saying, we're really going to have to work a little bit. We're going to have to make you look older. We need you to lean into this role. Then they glanced at Jackman and said, you're fine. You look plenty old. That would have been a fun moment.
He did have some hair in this one.
Yeah.
That was interesting. Maybe he was just like, look, I'll be in this Wolverine movie. I'm not cutting off what little bit of hair I got left, you jerks.
And it worked, man. It worked just fine.
It was all right. But it was.
Have you seen McAvoy, man? That guy's got hair everywhere.
Well, it's just interesting to see. I don't know. I was like, wow, we're getting F-bombs from Professor X, like kind of a lot.
It was fun, man. It was fun. I was waiting for him to, what's that Ricky Gervais show? I think it was called Extras or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Patrick Stewart was awesome in that, where he said he had an idea where Professor X would just use his power to make women's clothes fly off, and by the time they put him back on, it's too late because he's seen everything. Like, this is the Patrick Stewart Professor X I could see pulling that kind of thing.
You're not wrong. But it was good, man, and I liked him. Stephen Merchant was an interesting choice. Now, is that based on anything?
That's Caliban.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's Caliban, and Caliban was in X-Men Apocalypse, but not played by Stephen Merchant.
Hmm.
And he's usually a bad guy, right?
Well, he's manipulated by the bad guys because of his power. But Apocalypse, in the Age of Apocalypse storyline, turned him into one of his hellhounds, I think is what he was called. And he would seek out mutants on his behalf. So Caliban is sort of what I would call in Dungeons and Dragons terms just straight neutral. But he gets manipulated by the bad guys a lot. But this is years in the future where, for whatever reason, he's had a change of heart, mainly probably because there aren't very many mutants left. So he's holed up with these guys who protect him.
Yeah, it was interesting because he always was, when people said, "Oh, like here's him, here's his character, villain." Like everybody said, "Oh, he's the villain," which turns out not to be true.
Not at all, man. The villain was the guy with the robot arms.
One could say the villain was inside us all.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about, and I know, Sean, you said this movie's lighter on themes than Children of Men, but there is, mythography has this classic theme, anything that's made in a mythographic story arc, like I think this one is, the principle is you show ascension, decay, and renewal. And I think we have that here. And I think near the end of the movie, when they're starting to build a little bit of that emotional relationship between Logan, and many of us probably felt like this was not only his last movie, that perhaps he was going to die in the movie. That really tugged at my heartstrings. Did it connect with you guys at all on an emotional level?
Go ahead, Adam.
I'm emotionless. That's not true. I cry like a girl in every movie I watch. Yeah,
the Care Bears won.
It's not fair. But no, I really, you're right. The thing that got me about this was like really him just trying to just live. Like he wanted like everything to be as peaceful as it possibly could be. It was kind of it was very westerny. Just kind of like, look, I just want to be left alone. And I want to, I want to just kick off this mortal coil because I've been here long enough. I've seen too much. But I also at the same time have to care about, this man and then eventually this, this little girl that comes into his life. Doesn't want to, but still feels the need of because deep down inside, that still is who he is. He can't not, do what he feels morally he needs to.
And, this might be well-visited territory, but the whole concept that he loves her in a way. I mean, he doesn't really know her, but he has that automatic care for her, and he knows that the best way to keep her safe is to stay away from her. But that's the last thing that she wants. It's well-traveled territory, but I think they deal with it well.
It works pretty well.
How about you, Sean?
I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
How did the emotional connection, the father-to-daughter connection that started to unfold at the end of the movie, how did that touch you, if at all?
I am an emotionless monster. Just ask a string of angry ex-girlfriends. However, when it comes to daughters, I get a little touchy around that stuff, and so there was a little bit of that for me, but it wasn't something where I was welling up or tearing up or anything. But it pulls at you a little bit, sure.
When she calls him daddy, man, my eyes were not dry. I'm just going to lay it out there.
I felt a tug. I felt what you humans call emotions. But, it was, I just wasn't feeling it, to be honest with you.
It was the first time I've cried since the Fat Boys broke up.
I will say this, something that I liked, is Professor X just dies. It's not a big deal. It's not treated like, it's not just, the biggest.
He dies off screen.
The biggest dramatic. Yeah, it's not the biggest
he dies in the
dramatic
back of a pickup
thing. Truck. It just kind of happens, and it's like that's what life usually is, and that's, to me, for someone that led such a grand life and had all these amazing things to happen to him, to just kind of go out without a bang, but with more of maybe, I don't know if whimper's necessarily the right word, but close enough. I just thought that was a very interesting touch, and I liked it, actually.
I like the road trip aspect of this movie, and I also like to see Dr. Eric Benton from television's ER as a cowboy.
Yeah, man, I like that whole setup. That whole it's something that the second that family showed up, I'm like, this isn't gonna be. I'm like, I don't know that I like the road that this is going down, but it got me. And again, it's more of the cowboy coming in, helping out this distressed family and everything, and then, unlike a lot of the cowboy movies, things really go south.
They go real far south. I guess the last thing I'll ask about, and we're the death scene.
Mm-hmm.
We got to talk about the death scene and the follow-up to it. What do you think about the way they decided to take Wolverine out, essentially impaled on a tree stump?
It was, I don't, it's tough. I really need to, and this will also be reflected in my final grade and everything. I need to go back and watch this thing again. I only got to see it the once this week, but I think this is one that I need to, because I think I had a lot of kind of preconceived notions kind of going in. Maybe not necessarily preconceived notions, but kind of ideas, if you will. And this movie's very different than if you would have had me like write down on a piece of paper, what do you think the last Wolverine movie is going to be? It wouldn't have looked anything like this. And I still think that I need to kind of process out all of everything that kind of happened within this movie to really truly get I think if there's any contender for our end of the year go back and regrade something, this will definitely be on that list for me to watch a second time and go, what do I really think about this? Because like while I liked it and it was kind of satisfying, at the same time I was also like, but like while I enjoy Professor X's death being small and I don't want to say meaningless, but kind of not a big deal, I almost wish his was, a little bigger, a little better. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm on the cusp.
I don't think that this is that movie, though, Adam.
It's not.
One of the things that I really like about this movie is that it's not really by the numbers. I couldn't read everything that was coming, and a lot of superhero movies, as much as I love them, are so formulaic that you kind of see what's coming next. And this one, I kind of didn't. I mean, yes, Wolverine's going to die at the end. Absolutely. Yes, Professor X is going to die in this one. Yes. But what I didn't see coming is the way that they play it, especially when he buries Charles and she goes to grab his hand, and you think that this is going to be a turnaround moment. And no, he just gets angrier, actually. Mm-hmm. And that's smart writing. And that same writing is also not going to give you some big glorious ending like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I mean, you're just not going to get that in this movie. And I thought it was I like it, Bruce, to answer your question. I think it was fairly pitch perfect.
I agree, and that gives us the moment for her to call him daddy and to finally get some of what's been held back throughout the movie. Some stuff that a lesser movie would have been dipping its toe in 7 or 8 times by now. We get a moment of it. It's powerful. And then we get the response of her turning the wooden cross on it at an angle so that it looks like an X, which might be one of the hokier things in the movie. But at that point, I was so beaten up emotionally that I was going with it.
That worked for me on a big level because when she did that, it was like it was kind of the the metaphorical bury of that character of Patrick Stewart's already gone. It is kind of the closing of the book on that X-Men era. We'll never be back there. And this really was the movie to truly and absolutely close that thing out 100%. And while it borders on a little bit corny, but I think for what it was, to me, what it symbolized, it really worked.
And they did a good job of laying down the emotional groundwork to have that be poignant, because you're at a vulnerable state at the point that happens, and it's subtle and it happens well and it's meaningful because it's his daughter that does it. And I'm so glad that they didn't give us a mid-credit scene where the soil starts vibrating above his coffin.
Oh man, what a bad
claws come right out of the ground.
Give it a Carrie ending.
Oh man, but I do like how he kind of, while he wasn't that in any time, you heard it in the trailer there. Professor X is like, I think she was waiting for you, kind of thing, to where he almost became the Professor X, albeit for a very, very short time, for this new crop of kids. He helped bring them together and then get everybody to this rally point and stuff to be able to kind of help defend themselves and everything. And I thought that was an interesting point to really, because all the way back to the original X-Men, it's just he's the guy that doesn't really want to belong. Professor X says, "I see something in you. There's good in you. I can, you can help this stuff out." And they mention, oh, he's, had some good times and bad times being a teacher and student and all that kind of good stuff. But this was his kind of final test, if you will, and he passed.
And when Pierce gets mutilated by the new mutants there, when they all combine forces on him, that was pretty awesome scene too, with the grass growing up through his body and pulling him down and stuff.
Yeah, that was very cool. And again, it's nice to see new different types of mutant powers and stuff that you don't normally. So it's not like, oh, well, this is the ice kid, this is the fire kid, that kind of just same old, And
nice. Loved it when X-23 got to blow the big chunk out of X-24's head too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that looked awesome. Now let's before we go into the final grade here and everything, we do need to talk about how we didn't have an after credits, which is fantastic. There were rumors that we were going to, but they decided to do what I believe was the smartest thing they could have done and put their after credits before the movie itself,
a la Pixar style.
Well, no, Pixar just does a short. Though
this was a short. This wasn't.
Technically,
don't call this anything other than a short.
Well, it's a. Yes and no, but it's a short, but it's a short that's a teaser trailer for another movie that doesn't come out for well over a year. That has not even begun shooting principal photography.
What?
Yeah, so
the short for Deadpool.
Yeah, the Deadpool short at the front of the movie. Yeah, he thought we were talking about Karate Kid Part 4. No.
I'm listening.
But now, here's an interesting thing, kids. The trailer that is now this Deadpool trailer has now since been put out on the internet, and I'll call it a trailer for lack of a better term. It might be as short as Bruce says, but yeah, whatever. It's different.
I know Bubba Wheat's got my back on this one.
All right, fair enough. He's a good guy, so I'll let that slide. But no, man. So the one that's in the theaters and the one that's online are different. They're two different. There are a couple different things. Number one, there's a couple different music cues that are different in the movie. And there was a couple, and he answers a phone call in the phone booth.
Talking to Laird.
That's a new one. And then the again another music cue, and then at the end him kind of talking over the end there, just doing his Hugh Jackman impression, Ozzy impression.
And the Stan Lee,
and the Stan Lee. I can't believe I didn't miss that one. Yeah, and Stan Lee being there. And I tried to reach out to people that may have seen it in IMAX. I didn't know if that may have been like a quote unquote IMAX exclusive. If you went and saw it in IMAX, you got to see that. If you got to see the alternate trailer, I guess. I just found it very odd that two different trailers were out there. But that's bizarre. But did we have fun? I had fun. I was just like, I can't wait for another Deadpool movie.
But if that had been after the movie, it would have unbalanced everything that Mangold had worked so hard to put together.
Such a bright move to just be like, no, that's gonna mess all this up. Let's put it at the front. It's the best move that they've done.
Yeah,
best decision Fox has made in quite some time. All right, well, let's get down to it here on Hero Movie Podcast. We don't have any letters or grades or any of that kind of garbage. We have our own garbage.
Hey, Adam, I think you're forgetting something.
What? Oh, shucks. Thank you, sir. Thank you. My brain just we gotta back that train on up, kids, because we also have an email here from one of our longtime listeners, your favorite cop and mine, Michael Podorsky.
You're a loose cannon, Podorsky.
Watch out now.
Give me a gun and your shield.
On my desk now. Mike writes as this. Hey guys, just wanted to give you a quick review on Logan. Wolverine has always been one of my top 2 or 3 favorite characters, and this movie felt like justification, at least as far as the cinematic universe is concerned. Up to this point, the standalone Wolverine movies have been disappointing. Origins was fun, but brain dead, and the Wolverine was more grown up, but it felt like it was missing something. After seeing Logan on the true IMAX screen, I must say I haven't felt this satisfied after a movie since The Dark Knight. There's very little in the movie to complain about. I had everything I wanted and more. The violence felt necessary, not forced. The characters were fully fleshed out and had a heart and emotion that finally felt true to life. I typically don't get too emotional at these types of movies, but the ending had me on the verge of tears. I think after I've had some time to digest it all, this movie may be in my top 5 or maybe even top 3 superhero movies of all time. I think it's the best X-Men related movie ever made, hands down. That is from listener Michael Podorsky. Michael, thanks for the email, man. If you guys would like to email us, hearmoviepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder, Sean.
Podorsky, we're going to team you up with the cop that plays by the rules.
That way, it's checks and balances. You have to have those in life, I think. So now we get over to review time here. If you want to check out how we review these things.
No, we don't, Adam. No, we do not.
Yes, they do. Facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. What, do you have something else?
It's the most popular segment
Oh,
on the
for
show.
crying sake. My whole game is off. The whole game is off. I had to read an email out of order. I don't know where the hell I am most of the time. Sean, I think this is going to be a slam dunk for you, sir. How does this movie relate to our good friend Sylvester Stallone?
Luke Hawks is his stage name, and he plays the character of unnamed Reaver in Logan.
Oh.
But his real name is Orrin Hawkshurst. And while you won't be watching the movies he's slated to be appearing in because you're a smart, discerning, cultured person that I find attractive, and those clothes you wear look really great on you. Perhaps your brother, though. Your brother, who owns a couple of Affliction t-shirts, will enjoy the projects Luke Hawks will be involved in. And while it would be easy to overlook Luke Hawks because he looks like a bald, muscle-bound animal that knocks the book out of a fat kid's hands, then laughs to himself and continues drinking his Monster Energy drink, the truth is, he's a lot scarier than that. Reading up on him, his bio states that Luke Hawks is a professional wrestler and promoter that comes from New Orleans. Loud, confident, brash, but always ready to back up his words. Hawks was less intimidating in his formative years. However, as time went on, Hawks dedicated himself to the gym, showing a remarkable transformation and adding size and power, and is quick to brag about his huge effing arms that he sports today. That's his bio. That's how he describes himself when he's trying to get a job. He puts on some dress shoes and some slacks, probably some bronzer, and hands a resume that drops an F-bomb. But the scary part is this. It's working. This guy has 29 acting credits in his resume, and acting's not even his full-time job. So how does this guy relate Logan to Sylvester Stallone? Well, in 2013, Luke Hawks played the role of Hitman number 2 in the Sylvester Stallone penned movie Homefront, a movie that also starred Jason Statham, James Franco, Winona Ryder, and Kate Bosworth, and yet no one has ever seen this movie. But hitting close to home at HMP Studio, Luke Hawks will this year be on the AMC television series Preacher. And if you're looking for a recommendation, may I suggest Preacher Podcast? It stars comedy icon Sean Keenan, sequential art historian Bruce Leslie, film expert Matt Smith, and Adam. I can't wait to hear the hot take those guys have on Luke Hawks. So there you have it, HMP. This week's Stallone Connection. Now, Caliban and Weapon 24, let's review this movie so we can immediately start trolling Wolverine fan sites about Logan.
Man, I am surprised you didn't go straight to Copland.
No.
He doesn't.
No.
He doesn't. He doesn't.
He rolls up his sleeve and does the work. He's not like me.
Yeah, I just went straight for Copland and be like, it's done, finished, we're done. All right. Now, once, twice, here comes 3 times the charm. Let's get down to the official Robin rating system. Bruce, wait a
minute, Adam. There's one more.
I'm going to murder you in your sleep. Bruce, where does Logan lie on the H&P Robin rating system for you, sir?
Yesterday was my birthday, and I went to see this movie as my birthday present to myself. And I'm at a particularly vulnerable time when I went to watch this movie. My birthday's a day that, as of late, serves as a reminder of my own mortality. Sometimes I have tinges of realization that I'm not the spry fellow that I once was. I'm no longer the chubby kid running through the forest. Logan tugged on that emotion. Also, for my birthday week, my wife has been out of town in New York, and I've taken on increased childcare duties compared to my status quo, and I've really, really enjoyed it. It's caused me to feel the paternal side of my nature a little bit more strongly than I usually would. My daughter just happens to be the same age as the actress who played X-23 in this movie, which is 11 for people keeping track. So Logan tugged on that emotion as well. It was well acted, well directed. Daphne Keane was unbelievably good. There's really not a single thing that I wish had been different about this movie. And I don't know what I'll say about this movie at the end of the year, like you said, Adam. But today, I think this might be the best comic book movie I've ever seen. So I prefer it to Avengers today. I prefer it to Nolan's Dark Knight. I even prefer it to Hasselhoff's Nick Fury. So I'm going to give this a Dick Grayson.
My goodness. Okay. Let's just follow that one up, Keenan.
I think it's a little bit better than The Shadow.
But only by a little.
You know, Bruce, that is really high praise indeed, and I do understand that. Sometimes a movie just hits you and you're just like, wow, okay, yep, that's how you make movies right there. I get it. There's two things about this movie that we really didn't touch on, and one in particular that I didn't. Lindsay does not know anything about Wolverine or X-Men or anything, and she really likes this movie. She was promised something that was going to be dirgy and a lot of people crying and all that. And she did not have that experience, but she really liked it. And she could follow along, which you cannot say for a lot of comic book movies these days.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 1 point for it. There is 1 point against it, however, because this is the type of movie that D-bags who absolutely love movies like 300, the guys who are like, man, 300 is like the greatest movie of all time. It's the greatest movie. Those guys are going to love this movie too.
I didn't think about that.
They're going to trick you by saying, no, I like nerdy stuff too. I like Wolverine. I like 300. That is a tell. That person is not your friend. That person, you need to walk away from. Listen to me, lovely nerds. Stay away from that bad man. Okay, there you have it. So I can't right now. I cannot give it a Dick Grayson, but I will give it a Tim Drake, and a very, very high Tim Drake.
Yeah, I'm same here. It's just like it didn't quite, and again, that's why I prefaced, earlier saying I really need to see this again and kind of just get it in my head a little bit more. So it may change up there, but yeah, this is definitely a strong Tim Drake for me. I enjoyed it. It's like it was as good a send off as you possibly could think of. I mean, I think had they done a whole lot more, it may have just been, it may have felt weird. But, I think they got just enough of the right level. It felt like it was very respectful to everybody that was involved. And, like, if there's a way that they can go out, man, it's nice to see Wolverine actually be Wolverine. I mean, we were teased forever about, how Wolverine could actually be proper Wolverine, man. I mean, all the way, like, and when X-Men 2 came out, and that scene in the kitchen where he's just like, just going to town, everybody, like, that was when everybody's eyes opened for the first time and was just like, oh, this could really be what we want. And they never really delivered that to us until now. They really deliver that to us in spades. And I had as glib as a movie it could be. It's just, I had a lot of fun at it. And I look forward to having fun at it again. But definitely Tim Drake may change later on. Who's to say? But, yeah, all right, so that's good recommendations all around. A big, giant surprise from Bruce, man. Whew, oh, my.
I loved it, man. I loved it.
I don't think I'd have called that one forever, so mark that one down in the books.
My expectations were sky high going into this, and it surpassed them.
I don't think that you can ask more than that. High expectations, and they surpassed them. So good on you, James Mangold and friends. And, we got a couple other Hugh Jackman movies that we hadn't seen, that we hadn't reviewed on this show and everything. So he's not gone forever, but man, as far as the cinematic universe goes and his future in that, Godspeed, man. But couldn't have done it too much better, I don't think. Okay. So now, for those of you that follow us on Patreon, patreon.com/HMP, by the way, thank you all again for your generous donations here. Coming up tomorrow, or the moment that you hear this, actually, you're going to have your vote for 48 hours here on the movie that we will, vote on, that we're going to be reviewing next week, rather. So we're doing it a little bit early because, man, oh man, are the months chock full of just stuff that we got to do. So we're doing the Patreon movie early. So here are your choices: Superman 4. I know.
Streaming on Netflix, people could watch along.
It's simple as that, kids. Sean mentioned it earlier. You know it, you love it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze. The new DC, newish DC animated movie, Justice League Dark. The 90s Flash TV pilot. And, of course, Dr. Giggles. Now, you will have the opportunity to vote on those up at patreon.com/HMP. Now, even if you donate $1, you'll still be in that HMP voting session there, man. So how could it hurt? And you help support the show that you know and love. How can you go wrong? The answer is you cannot. You cannot. So thank you guys so much for everybody on there at patreon.com/HMP. Bruce, in the meantime, where can we find more of your work in the interim, sir?
Well, even though we don't have a spot for Audible, I just still want to mention Audible because that is the best place to get Dragon in the Needles. The audiobook is up. You can get it for free when you get your, you sign up, you get your free credit, use it for Dragon in the Needles, or if you're already a member, wait till one of your free credits pop up, use it for that. You can also go to Chubby Wizard and hear Chris and I chat about various and sundry comic book related topics. We'll probably talk a little Logan on Wednesday when we record that. And I've still got that cool Black Bolt episode floating around out there on Heroes and Villains.
Very, very good. Mr. Keenan.
I'm going to use my time today to talk about Adam's show, Nerd Talk Now. Adam is doing yeoman's work, and it's the hardest job you can possibly have, even for Adam, of talking for an hour straight. Yeah. And he does a great job on that. So check it out, guys. Nerd Talk Now.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, that'll be, it's out on iTunes, Stitcher. If you want to watch the show, facebook.com/Nerd Talk Now, Sunday through Thursday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And this week, we'll be talking this Monday, we'll be talking a little bit about Logan. And I went out shopping, and I got myself a present, and I'm going to be talking about it and whether or not it's worth your time to do so as well. And, of course, my other podcast, The Film Find, thefilmfind.com, and Preacher Podcast, as you guys all know. But that's it, man. Bruce and I, we don't do much, do we, Bruce?
Not much at all.
Not much at all. We're kind of lollygagging around here. That is it, everybody. Join us next week for the Patreon special for Sean Keenan, Bruce Leslie. I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.
There's a man going round taking names, and he decides who to free and who to blame. Everybody won't be treated all the same. There'll be a golden ladder reaching down when the man comes around. The hairs on your arm will stand up at the terror in each sip and in each sup. Will you partake of that last offered cup, or disappear into the potter's ground when the man comes around? Hear the trumpets, hear the pipers, 100 million angels singing. Multitudes are marching to the big kettle drum. Voices calling, voices crying. Some are born and some are dying. It's Alpha and Omega's kingdom come. And the whirlwind is in the thorn tree. The virgins are all trimming their wicks. The whirlwind is in the thorn tree. It's hard for thee to kick against the pricks. Till Armageddon, no shalom, no shalom. Then the father hen will call his chickens home. The wise men will bow down before the throne, and at his feet they'll cast their golden crowns when the man comes around. Whoever is unjust, let him be unjust still. Whoever is righteous, let him be righteous still. Whoever is filthy, let him be filthy still. Listen to the words long written down when the man comes around. Hear the trumpets, hear the pipers, 100 million angels singing. Multitudes are marching to the big kettle drum. Voices calling, voices crying. Some are born and some are dying. It's Alpha and Omega's kingdom come. And the whirlwind is in the thorn tree. The virgins are all trimming their wicks. The whirlwind is in the thorn tree. It's hard for thee to kick against the pricks. In measured 100-weight and penny pound, when the man comes around. Of the four beasts, and I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him.